A little bit of a delay.
Okay.
Okay, we're live. We thought we were a little late. We were trying to set up the lighting for things. So sorry that we are a little bit late. I'm Catherine. I work with, or I host the Girls Gone Gravel podcast and work with Feisty Media, if you don't know me. And then I have Unbound XL second place winner, Serena Bishop Gordon, founder of Special Blend Gravel. Did I say that right? Is that the
Yeah,
correct?
that's right. Yep.
With me today, and we are going to talk about the Oregon Trail gravel grinder, or if you're doing another stage race, a lot of this stuff will apply to you. So just give us a little overview of what the Oregon Trail gravel grinder is, like how that's set up. So if somebody stumbles on this and is like, I'm just interested in a multi-day stage race, or maybe I'm interested in it for another year, that they know. And maybe also tell us just a little bit about you, Serena.
Yeah, thank you so much, Catherine. My name's Serena Bishop Gordon, and as Catherine said, I'm the founder of Special Blend Gravel. I've been racing gravel for a really long time, and I'm just a huge advocate to bring more people, especially women, into the sport of gravel because it's so amazing to go explore, whether you're racing or riding or competing or completing. It's just such an awesome way to spend our time. And with Oregon Trail gravel, it's a great way to spend a week in the Cascade Mountains. This is the 6th year of the event, and it's a 5-day point-to-point stage race that starts and ends in Bend, Oregon, and circumvents the Cascade Mountain Range. So it's a really unique event. The logistics that go into putting on an event like this are huge because all of your belongings that will fit into a tote are transported from camp to camp each night. So all you have to do is ride your bike, and all of your stuff for camping each day is transported. And when you arrive at the camp location at the end of your day, there are your tents are set up, the food is available. There are usually swimming holes and games and awesome places to hang out, and just the community is there to support each other. Chad Sperry and Breakaway Promotions puts on Oregon Trail, and they do an exceptional job with course recon, course development. They do a lot of course clearing because we get to ride roads that
than taking snow off the course before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they end up clearing a lot of roads that are managed by the Forest Service and otherwise probably wouldn't get cleared, at least not this early, but sometimes not at all, just because of the budget restrictions that the Forest Service has right now. So they also open up a lot of roads to people who aren't doing the race for riding and just vehicular traffic as well.
And I'm your neighbor over in Washington, and we had late snows this year out here. So we just went hiking up at Mount Rainier last weekend and with my little niece, and it was like 1.5 miles of a snow hike, like deep, still quite deep snow.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it was, we were like, oh yeah, the snow was quite late this year. So I'm sure you all had the same over in Oregon.
Yeah, I've been in touch with Chad. There were a couple spots that last week there was still a little bit of snow, but he said that he got through. I don't know about stage 5. That was probably going to be the last to melt out, but we did have temperatures that were in the high 90s the beginning of this week. So I think everything stage 1 to stage 4 is already melted out. And then stage 5, there might be a little bit of snow up high, but that'll be either cleared by Chad and his team or will have melted out by the time we get there.
Awesome. Okay, well, we have a full document of questions that people have sent to you, but if you're watching live and you have a question, you can also drop it in the chat, and I'll be monitoring the chat. I'll pull those over as we see them. So some of your questions may get covered in here, but feel free. This is very interactive. So are you ready to jump in to your...
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of covered this, but is there mechanical support or sag along the route other than at the rest stops?
So we have amazing support along the route. There are people on motos. And so if you do get into trouble, they can help you, although it's advised that you bring your own tire plugs, tube, CO2, hand pump, all of that so that you can be self-sufficient. But if something happens along the route, there is support. It won't ever be last person on course. If you get to a place where either you're at an aid station and you're like, I'm done for the day, I'd like to bail, you can get a ride back to camp. But they are going to do their best to sort of nudge you along and fill up your water bottles and give you some snacks. So yeah, there is mechanical support, but try to be self-sufficient. And that's part of the process as well, of learning how to change a flat tire and take care of your stuff along the way.
Do you all do any of that in camp? Do you have any clinics? Or, I mean, ideally people learn before they get there, but if they're like,
Yeah.
I'm not getting a chance to get hands-on with
like during the race
tube and like then
yeah.
actually like putting the plug in, it's a different, different feel.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, Catherine. I was actually teaching a skills clinic last night, and I was talking about how I was like, what are you carrying in your pockets? And how many of these things have you ever used? And how many of these things do you actually know how to use? Like, okay, you have a chain breaker, but you don't know what to do with it. At Special Blend Gravel Camp, that is one of the things that we do. And at Oregon Trail Camp, Schwalbe is one of the sponsors, and they have a whole setup. And if you have questions about how to use a tire plug, they have a demo tire, which you can put an ice pick in and practice plugging it. If you need tubes, if you need a demo on like how to put a tube in a tubeless tire, they're there to support you as well. And we'll also have a women's Q&A panel on Friday during camp, so we can help with that. But honestly, like, just grab somebody, one of the pros, and if you have a question during the race, just ask. That's what's so fun about this particular race, is that we all eat together, we camp together, we're drinking coffee, groggy-eyed each morning. It's a really cool camp vibe. We call it like summer camp for people with a bike addiction, because it's like when you were 12 and you went to summer camp and you just like hung out with your friends all week. We get to do that, and we get to ride our bikes. So there's lots of opportunities.
I love that. I think like anytime you have like a test tire, somebody else's tire, that you can practice plugging and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get into the important thing, food. Can you make lunch at breakfast to take with you on the stage? Like, so some people are gonna be really fast, like, right? The pros, they're like gonna be like done and having their lunch, but me, I'm gonna be a long time. I need some food.
If you want to pack a sandwich from breakfast and put it in your pocket for the ride, like, no one's going to be upset with you. However, there are aid stations along the way, and then there will be full lunch spread at the finish. So if you have really specific dietary needs for ride food, or if you're like, I need to make sure that I have this kind of jam on my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, bring it. But otherwise, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner are quite robust. So if you want to pack a pocket sandwich for the ride, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. We have coming in. This might be, but what items are at the aid stations? What kind of food and electrolytes are we going to see there?
Yeah. So you're going to see hydration and nutrition products from GU Energy Lab. So that's going to be Roctane hydration mix, and also gels and shoes from GU. And then Colleen, who runs all the aid stations and logistics, she does a great job of making sure that we have all the snacks. So chips, peanut M&Ms, Rice Krispies, lots of gummy candies. They're probably going to be bananas and fruit. There's a good chance there'll be Coke, water. If it's hot, they'll bring in a lot of ice so you can stay cool. If you stop at that aid station, fill your bottle with some ice. What else are at the aid stations? They're pretty robust. But again, I recommend bringing your own nutrition, because you want to make sure that you have what you need for the ride. So it's great to stop, fill your bottles, grab a snack at the aid station, but I would personally not rely on the aid stations for your ride food. And from the start of the race to the first aid station, you need to make sure that you have the nutrition you need. There's not a pre-start line aid station where you can fill up on products. So, but GU Energy is the nutrition sponsor of the event. So if you're familiar with their products, it's great, because they'll have those at the aid stations. If you're not familiar with their products, give them a try before race day. You can buy the single servings of the Roctane hydration mix and just try it. They'll also most likely be the GU electrolyte tabs at the aid stations that come in the tubes. They can just pop in your water or bladder.
Yeah, I found the goo Roctane, like, it's easy to drink. I haven't had any stomach issues with it. So, but yeah, I like the single serving. Go out and get a few single servings and do it when I'm on one of your rides. So you're not like, ooh, this is really bad. Because you don't, well, maybe this would be a good thing to talk about is like how important it is to actually fuel yourself for a stage
Mm.
race every day. Like really stay on top of that, not only at your meals, but also your ride food. So like
Yeah.
give us some perspective on that.
Well, I look at a stage race like this because it's so many days and the days are long and hard. It is kind of an eating contest. And that eating contest starts 2 days before the race. So the race starts on Wednesday. I would start carb loading on Monday, which really just means reducing. You don't necessarily have to increase your total caloric intake, but reducing fat and um, protein just a little bit and increasing your carbohydrates, and make those super simple. So you want to pull out fiber, you want to pull out leafy greens, you want to just make sure you're getting best bang for your buck. So lots of rice, lots of pasta, lots of oatmeal, sugar cereal are great options. So that's pre-race. Then once the race starts, you want to make sure most days the race starts at 9 for the regular start. There are early starts for people who might want a little more time. But I believe the race starts at 9. So count backwards and say, when do I want to eat breakfast? And breakfast opens pretty early, I think at 6. So depending on how quickly you digest, that's going to be different for everyone. But try to get your breakfast in on the early side, and focus again on carbohydrates, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, but really carb heavy breakfast. And do things that you're familiar with already. Don't decide on during the race that you're going to try some new breakfast food. And then as soon as the gun goes off, you need to start thinking about eating and drinking. And so oftentimes people won't eat anything until an hour or so into the race, and then now they're already behind. So you need to start drinking 15 minutes in, take a gel at the start line, and then at 30 or 45 minutes in, or some other sort of food item. And you just want to be nibbling on your bike buffet the whole ride. And grams of carbs per hour varies highly among individuals. And there is sort of this more is better. And for some people, that is the case. However, I'm gonna generate less power than one of the top male pros, and they need more carbs than I do. So if I say my body, I can't handle 120 grams of carbohydrates an hour, it just doesn't work. So what I'm aiming for is going to be different than someone else, and that's okay. But you need to train your gut to be able to accept it, and then just stick to a plan. So if your goal is 70 grams of carbs per hour, just make sure you're doing that every single hour throughout the race. And if you're half an hour from the finish line, you're like, oh, I'm almost done. I don't need a gel, or I don't need to take another bite of my Bobo bar, or I don't need another chew. Actually, you do, because you are fueling for day 2 on day 1. And if you get behind, there's no way you can catch up. So as soon as you cross that finish line, you want to get your recovery drink in, which is going to be a mix of carbohydrates and protein. And then you want to take off your chamois, get in your shower, and then go to lunch. Don't eat lunch in your chamois. That's one of my biggest pet peeves.
Especially women. You know? Especially women, don't sit around the chamois.
Yeah. So recovery drink 100%, then take a shower, then come back for lunch. And you may not eat lunch until 2 or 3 o'clock, and dinner's at 6. Whatever. Just shovel it in as much as you can. And when you go to the buffet line at dinner, do not fill your plate 3/4 full of lettuce and salad. Like, you might want a little bit of greens, but this is not the time to think about, oh, I need to make sure I'm getting enough fiber in my diet. This is the time where it's like,
Nobody
need
to go in the woods the next
right.
day.
And also, like, you need protein. Obviously, you want to make sure you're rebuilding your muscles. And you're not going to waste away, but really focus on the carbohydrate intake. And then, hell yeah, have dessert, ice cream or cookies or whatever. Like, you are not going to overeat during Oregon Trail, because the next day you have to do it again. Yeah. So my rule of thumb, and I just rambled, but my rule of thumb is you are eating today for tomorrow. And by day 5, you're just starving. So you're just like eating everything anyway. And then you're done.
Yeah, and I know you're saying race and like we're referring to it as a race, but this is not just for people that are quote unquote racing. Like anybody that is doing this event, it is vital you pay attention to your fueling because you're not going to have fun day 3 or 4 or 5 if you mess up day 1 and 2. With that,
Yeah, and Catherine, I'd almost say for the folks that are on their bike longer, the on the bike fueling becomes more and more important because if you're on your bike for 5 hours and you maybe don't fuel enough, you're back at camp, you can have 2 lunches. But if you are on your bike for 8 hours, you're just missing more opportunity to eat between the time that you get off your bike and the time that you go to bed. So,
yeah. Valerie's also asking, are there recovery drinks or should we bring our own? And also my Wi-Fi is being a little weird, so hopefully it doesn't go out. If I'm gone, I'll come back.
Valerie, I would recommend you bring your own. There's a chance there will be recovery. I would have to double check with the race promoters, but I would bring your own. That's not something that I would chance. And also, different recovery drinks are made up of different ingredients, and you want to make sure that you have one that you like. So I use a combination of whey protein added to a GU recovery mix. And you can buy those GU recovery drinks in single packets or in bags that I think are 20 servings. But I bring your own just because you don't want to leave it to chance. And if you end up finishing and the recovery situation is already torn down or whatever, just don't leave it to chance.
Yeah, I take like those little snack bags. I did this when we went to Girona, and I just had like, because I do creatine every day, and so I have like my scoop of protein powder and a scoop of creatine, and then I just would have that little snack Ziploc bag, and then enough for every day in my thing, so that it wasn't that big to pack either.
Yeah, and you just keep it organized, and you're like, oh, Thursday. You know, you can write on it, put it in your shaker bottle, and not have to worry.
Okay, I'm going to jump to this aid. Like, what's the distance between aid stations since we're on nutrition? And then maybe I'll look and see if there are any other big nutrition ones. And we just went through best strategies for fueling, so we got that one. The distance between aid stations.
Yeah, so it's going to depend a little bit on whether you're doing, there's a settler route and a pioneer route, and the pioneer route is a little bit longer. However, they're not that much different if you look at the mileages. But the aid stations are going to be like every 30-ish miles. I was looking at the courses last night, and it, some days they're a little bit closer. I think on day 1, they're at mile like 30 and mile 55. On day 2, we get aid stations a little bit earlier in the course. So I think at mile 22, and then at 35, and then at 60 something. And because these courses are really remote, they put the aid stations at places that the vehicles can get to. So that's why they're a little bit different each day. But a couple of hours of riding in between each one.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but one thing I found, because I used to live over in the Southeast, and it wasn't quite the same amount of climbing that you get out here with these big, like hour, 2-hour climbs. I have found like having my gels, like a gel before a climb. Now, if you don't take gels, don't try this. But gel before a climb is magical. Like when you start doing that part, and I have them torn open because they're kind of hard to do as you're climbing. And like, yeah, it's like one of my secrets to climbs.
Well, and what's so cool now and I use a Garmin, so I'm familiar with Climb Pro feature, but if you download the route onto your computer, your cycling computer, it will tell you when a climb is coming up and how long that climb is. And then you can be like, oh, okay, we got to climb. I'm going to take a gel or get some extra fuel in the tank before this climb starts. And utilizing the technology that we have makes the course so much easier to break down into sections. And you aren't, oh my God, is this a hour climb, or is this a 2-hour climb, or is it only 15-minute climb? I don't know. But if you utilize that technology, and I know it's also available on the Wahoo head units, I think it can allow you to make fueling choices and also just wrap your head around like what's ahead, what's coming up.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like a little demoralizing when you start to get steep. Like, my time just went up 10 minutes.
Or you see like the darkest red color on the graph that you've ever seen. You're like, oh no.
But I do like knowing what's coming. Yeah. Okay. What about inclement weather? What is the weather like in that area this time of year? And what do you do if it goes south?
Yeah. So last year we got really lucky. The year before it was really, really hot. So the race goes on, rain or shine. Um, so bring as a racer or anytime I go to a cycling event, I bring my arm warmers, my warm gloves, my rain jacket, my wool beanie, my knee warmers. I bring that no matter what the forecast says, because you never know what's going to happen. And if you have it with you, it's probably going to be fine. And if you don't have it, it's going to start pouring rain. So pack for every weather, every type of weather. If it's really hot, what the race director will do is shift the start times. And it's a huge inconvenience for him and the timing company. But what they recognize is that the rider experience is better and they really want to focus on that. So if it's really hot, they will often move the start time earlier in the morning, just so that they can get more riders off the course before like the hottest part of the day. And they'll also bring in a lot more water and ice and things like that to the aid stations and along the course if it's really hot. They want to make sure that we're safe. But they can't control what the weather does. So it's really about safety. If for whatever reason the course becomes unsafe, or say there's like a crazy weather event and there's a landslide and the road is impassable, they'll make those adjustments on the fly. But I've raced Oregon Trail when it's been snowing, and I've raced Oregon Trail when it's in 100+ degrees. So you got to be kind of prepared for anything.
Yeah. And because you're pretty high, it's still going to be chilly at camp at night, even if it's really chilly. That's, people don't understand, like Oregon's high desert. So temperatures can really fluctuate.
Yeah, make sure you bring like puffy jacket and long pants. Spending pretty much your entire day, every day outside. So you want to have the insulation to stay warm. And I also recommend, if it is going to be hot, in addition to a sleeping bag, bring a sheet, just a plain white, just like a sheet that you can just lay over your body, and you don't have to get into your sleeping bag if it is hot at night. Because Oak Ridge Camp, where we are 2 nights, is kind of in a valley, and it can get pretty hot there, even overnight.
Yeah. I just thought, if people aren't regular campers, I think I'm going to go to this camping thing in Oregon for 2 nights in July. And I was like, oh, they have these little fans now that are just like chargeable, that go in the top of your tent.
Yes.
And they have a long battery life. So I was like, that would be the thing if it's hot, because they're pretty small.
Yeah. And Catherine, that's actually a great point. So in regards to charging your electronics or your fan, whether it be like your SRAM battery, your Garmin computer, your portable fan, they set up these charging banks with like 100 outlets. So you can just plug your stuff in. It's totally safe. Come back in an hour or so when it's charged. So you don't have to worry about bringing another like external power supply or power block with you.
Nice. This has nothing to do with this, but on a funny story, I read this story yesterday of on the Appalachian Trail. They thought that somebody was stealing backpacks off of the trail for through hikers, and then they realized it was a bear. Like, if they didn't they were like a bear with and it would take it down the trail and go through the. Anyway, I don't think that you're gonna have to worry about that. But it just, when you said safe, it made me think of that story.
Yeah.
It was really funny.
Well, it's interesting. There are black bear in the Cascade Mountains. I've seen them out there. Chances are, by the time most of us come through the course, the leaders of the race have already disrupted whatever sort of wildlife happenings are going along the road. So you probably won't see any bears, but they are out there, but they're scared of us. They're not going to hurt
Yeah,
you.
they're scared. The only thing you ever have to worry about is if you see babies and you're between the baby and the mama.
Yeah.
That's when you want to be like, oh, I better get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
For black bears. Not so much grizzlies, but they don't have grizzlies in Oregon. Okay. The constant question, what's the tire? What tire should you run?
Oh, there's never the exact right tire for every mile of every course. And so I think you have to just say, all right, what's the best all-around tire that I feel comfortable on? The tire I'm going to run front and rear, I think for every stage is the Schwalbe RX in a 45 mil. I love that tire. It rolls very well. It has a lot of traction, super durable. It's the tire I ran for Unbound XL. I had 0 mechanicals, no flats. I was actually emailing with someone yesterday about tire choice, and he was saying, like, do I run the 44s or the 2.2s? And my recommendation was for the sandier days, which are going to be day 1, the first half of day 2, and day 5, sandier and more technical, run a wider tire or a wider front tire. So on those days, I may opt to run a 50 mil in the front. On the second half of day 2, day 3, and day 4, those courses are less sandy, less volcanic. There's more granite in the roads, and so it's a lot less loose, more hard pack. It can be a little bit of ball bearing over hard, so when you're descending, you want to be careful. But on the east side of the Cascades, there's a lot more volcanic ash in the soil, and so the roads disintegrate actually and turn into this really nice, wonderful sandy powder. But on the west side, it's not that way. So you can bring 2 sets of wheels. You can the race will transport a second set for you every day to the next camp, which is awesome. Whether you break a wheel or you want a different set of tires, just to have backup. So that's a great option. They will not be at the aid stations, but they'll be at camp every night. So if you're really questioning which one should I go, I love the 45 mil RX, but there's so many good tires out there.
Yeah,
That's what you feel comfortable on.
We had talked to Celine Yeager a lot, and she's like, a tire about that size will get you through pretty much anything. And like, if you're like, I don't have to, like, don't stress about it. Just 44, 45, like that'll get you.
Yeah. And I would say really, this is a little bit tangential, but PSI or tire pressure is almost more important than the tire or the tread, because if I'm running 45 PSI, it doesn't matter how big the tire is. Like if I'm running 45 PSI in a mountain bike tire, it's going to feel awful. So practice running lower tire pressure than you think you need. I would say 95% of the people I work with, I give them a tire gauge and say, what's your PSI? And they say something like 37, and they're a 135-pound woman. And like, yep, that's not going to work for you. Take out 10 PSI, and then we'll keep going down from there. So if you have questions about, I don't know what PSI I should be running, Schwalbe has a calculator. I know there's a number. If you just Google like PSI cycling calculator, there's a bunch of online resources, and you put in your weight, your bike's size of your tire, and it'll give you an estimate of what your PSI should be. I will warn you that most of those estimates are high because nobody wants to tell you to run a tire pressure that's too low and you flat, and then you blame them. So if you run one of these calculators and it says you should run 27 in the front and 29 in the back, I would say reduce that by a couple of PSI and test that out and see what you think. I'm a huge advocate of carrying a digital PSI gauge because every pump is different. But if you have your gauge with you, you know that's at least it's consistent. It might not be right, but it can be consistent. And that way, when you're at camp and you're pumping up your tires with somebody else's pump or the pump that's available at the Schwalbe tent, you can have your tire gauge there and you can know exactly what you're starting with. And on that note, if you pump your tires up at 7 o'clock in the morning and it's 55 degrees, and midway through the course, the temperature has increased and now it's 90 degrees, and you've gone up in elevation, your tire pressure will have increased. So whatever you fill your tires at in the morning, know that it's going to go up substantially. It can range anywhere from like 10 to 20% increase based on temperature and elevation, which is pretty significant when we're talking about PSIs in the 20s and 30s. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about what PSI you want to start with in the morning.
Yeah, I learned if I feel like I'm bouncing all over, because I'm really bad at like checking. That's happened to me before, where it's like, it got cold overnight and my tires were more. And I'm like, I just need to let some air out of my tires before I descend. I'm like, oh yeah, it feels a lot better.
Yeah. So. And you can totally do that. You know, you stop at the aid station at mile 35 and you're like, now it's hot and I want less pressure. Just take a little bit of tire, you know, take a little air out. There's no problem with that.
It's a good time to experiment with stuff like that. What feels good, you know, if you haven't done that before. I'm talking like I've ever done this, but
you should come, Catherine. It's so
I know.
fun.
I'm like, I really want to do this event. Okay. And then that was the next question is, there are some big descents on this. You are in the high mountains. Tips, tricks for descending, cornering, all the things that are a little bit scary on gravel, especially if people haven't done these really long descents before.
This is something I could talk about for 3 hours, and then we can go outside and we can practice it.
I actually thought about driving to Bend to see if you give me a lesson. I was supposed to be
100%. 100%
next week for an event, and I was like, I'm going to see if Serena will give me a lesson, but I'm not going now.
We should talk about that because it would be fun. I would say a couple of tips off of the, you know, just like basic things to think about is eyes forward. So look where you want to go. Look around the corner. You know what your tire looks like. Do not look at your tire. Always be scanning. The faster you're going, the further you need to scan forward. And always look around the corner. So your bike and your body is going to follow where your eyes are. So look where you want to go. Descend with flat, level pedals and drop your heels. It creates a much more stable platform than having your toes forward or your feet on level. So that's a really good tip. And then if you find yourself white knuckling, oh my God, I'm so scared, I'm skidding all over the place, just stop, put your foot down, take a deep breath, and then continue on. Because once you get into that super locked in, tight, oh my God, I'm going to die position, it is so hard to get out of it while you're going really fast. So I tell people, just like put your foot down and reset. There is nothing that says you can't do that. Take a deep breath and continue on. And tune out if people are flying by you, because so often, especially I've found this with so many of the female athletes that I work with, they're amazing climbers. And then their skills on the descent haven't been really refined, and they get passed by all these people that they passed on the uphill. And it's scary to get passed by people. And so I say, just block them out. Don't think about what's happening around you and relax. So there's a lot to work on with descending, braking, and cornering, but if you're tense, it's going to be harder. And oftentimes, if you're trying to go really slow by just pulling on your brake levers, it is actually harder to balance. So
yeah, it's hard to get to where you believe like going a little faster is actually going to be more comfortable. I'm constantly on a descent being like, relax. Like I have to say that to myself over and over again, because if not, I'll get like really, it's just like the more your body's, the more you'll actually also roll over the bumps and not feel like you're going to bounce off the bike.
A good way to think about speed being your friend is if you try to do a track stand, you have no forward momentum. It's really, really hard to balance, right? Like you have to really practice. except for Meg Fisher. She can track stand for like 45 minutes. But track standing is not easy. However, if you're rolling, you're like, oh, this is easy to balance. And it's the same with descending. If you're going faster, if you're keeping some speed, you can balance. Whereas if you're barely moving, it feels so uncomfortable and difficult. So forward motion, look where you want to go.
Yeah. When I was in Spain, there were some really good mountain bikers that were on our trip. And I was like, I'm following them down the descents because they know the best lines and you can kind of learn from their lines. So that's another trick. If you know somebody's a really good mountain biker, try to get behind them on a descent and follow their line.
Yeah. Line choice is huge. There's so many elements. That's what's so fun. Such a fun thing about gravel is like, there's always something to work on. And I am always thinking about, oh, how can I take this corner faster? Oh, how can I adjust my body? And it's just constant evolution of your understanding of how stability and balance can be used to achieve greater downhill speed. So it just takes lots of practice.
Okay, there is a question about sand. How much sand is too much sand? And it sounds like there's a lot of sand on this course. So maybe some tips for riding sand if people haven't encountered it before.
So the couple of tricks that I would share when you're riding sand is light on the front wheel. So you want to let the front wheel track wherever it wants, and think about your bike as a rear wheel tractor. And you're just putting power into that rear wheel, and put a little more pressure on the back of your saddle. So you might want to scoot back just a little, less weight on the front, and just power to the rear wheel. And you don't want to get bogged down with a cadence where you're just like grinding. So what I would say is if you're approaching a sand section, go in with speed. Some people will brake because they're nervous between the changes of surface, but try not to brake because you want as much momentum as possible. So enter at a speed that you're pedaling, you're moving forward, and as the sand reduces, your speed and your momentum shift into an easier gear, so you can try to keep a steady cadence. And just always look forward. Don't look at the sand, don't look at the rut, don't look at how deep it is. Look where you want to go, and let that front wheel just kind of do its thing. Again, practice, but a little bit more weight on that rear wheel, less weight on the front wheel, and just it's hard for everybody. And the bike is gonna move under you and fishtail, and that's totally fine. If you are holding your balance and stability over that bottom bracket, it's okay for the bike to move under you. And if you keep pedaling, it's going to be fine. It'll straighten itself out.
Are there water crossings? Because there's some similar tips for water crossings, right?
Yeah, there could be a few puddles that I could consider water crossings depending on the snow melt, but there aren't any. If you were in Kansas for Unbound, they're like actual water crossings. At this race, there aren't any like stream crossings that don't have a bridge.
Okay. The next question is just about recovery every day. So we covered that a little bit, how important your nutrition is, how important not sitting around in your chamois is. And that's like just to keep everything from getting anything going on down there.
Right.
But like, what are your other tips for recovery? Like you're in a beautiful place, but maybe it's not the best time to go for a hike or.
Well, one of the great things is that most of our camps are really close to cold river water. So sitting in the river after you've had your lunch and letting your legs just soak for a little while feels great. It's good for your muscular recovery. It's also a really fun time to just visit with other folks because everybody's down by the river hanging out. So get into the cold water, even if it doesn't feel good. Lay down, take a nap, lay in the grass, and make sure you're carrying around a water bottle and have electrolytes in it. So drinking plain water is fine, but it won't absorb nearly as well as if you have a little bit of salt and potassium in that water. So whether it's liquid IV or goo tablets or whatever. Like a little electrolyte in your water is super helpful. So staying hydrated can be incredibly hard when it's really hot. So just make a point to be hydrating. Obviously, we talked about earlier, eating, and then just staying off your feet, like, and staying out of the sun. There are, each camp has this, I don't know, like a hangout zone where there are inflated couches and just places to be. I think New Belgium will be there with the Normatec recovery boots, so you can sit in a reclined lawn chair and have the recovery boots on for a little while. Personally, I think avoiding alcohol is a really good idea. There is a full bar. It's part of your registration. If you're someone who enjoys a beer or a cocktail in the evening, by all means. However, it's not going to enhance your recovery. As much as beer drinkers say that beer is a great recovery tool, I disagree, and I think it's better to be avoided, especially if it's hot. Just not the best way to start the next day.
Are they going to have NAs? Because I know there are quite a lot of really good NAs where you feel like you're having a beer these days.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm not sure. But that's something I can double check on and let you know. And I don't know if we can add something to the YouTube, maybe in the comments. Yeah.
Okay. And then just walk us through the agenda. You've kind of done it loosely, but just like, what does a day look like?
So, day one is a little bit different because I don't believe the start is until 10 o'clock. But on the other days, the sun comes up super early, like at 5. And so you're sleeping in a tent. So bring an eye mask. That's one tip I have failed to mention. Bring an eye mask and bring earplugs. But you're going to wake up. Coffee is available pretty early. And then go to the breakfast tent and you'll eat breakfast. Then, depending on what time you're starting, you want to kit up and you want to pack your bin. So each participant gets a big black bin and it has a 50-pound weight limit, and they do put them on the scale. So you'll get your bin at check-in the day before the race. And then that night before the race starts, you need to pack it. And then you'll drop it off at the start of the race on day 1. And every subsequent day before you start the stage, you'll take your bin over to the truck. And you need to have everything packed in there. And then you'll take yourself and your bike and you'll go to the start line. And then you'll be out there for, I would say, depending on the stage, somewhere between 4 and 8 hours. And then you'll finish at camp. We talked about recovery, showers, lunch, chilling out, dinner. And then in the evening, there's award ceremony, podium, some fun games. And then early to bed is what most people opt for. And then you get to do it all over again. On, let's see, on day 2, you ended in Oak Ridge, and on day 3 you end in Oak Ridge. And so you don't have to move camp between day 2 and day 3, which is wonderful because you don't have to pack up your stuff. If you do not have the VIP tent service, you'll also need to pack up your tent on those days where we move from camp to camp. But if you have VIP tent, which is most people, volunteers from the local community pack up all the tents, put them in the trucks. You don't have to worry about that. So you can leave your tent fully erected, and then when you get to the next camp, it'll be set up for you to crawl into.
Yeah. Some people do bring vans or stuff. Is that correct, or is that allowed?
Yeah, you can bring an RV or a small RV or a van. You have to reserve a spot, and I don't know if there are any left. You also have to have a driver because the van has to get from place to place. Yeah. So there is an extra charge, but there is an opportunity to do that. But most people tent can't.
Well, that was, somebody had asked about could their support person be on the course, and I'm guessing that's a no-no because there's a lot going on, of course. Like you have to
Yeah,
relax.
there's no outside support allowed. You can't have support at the aid stations. You can't have support on course. Mostly from a safety standpoint because the courses are so remote. So once you leave your support people at the start, you'll see them at the finish, but you will not see them in between.
Okay, this next question is probably there's an answer for if you're racing but our usual stage rules like our time is in effect. Like if you don't finish one day, can you start the next day? So I'm guessing you're maybe out of the race, but you can still do the event, right?
Exactly. So there are no there. So in a road stage race, there's often like time cuts where if you don't make the time cut as a percentage of time for the leader, then you can't start the next day or something like that. That does not apply here. If you don't finish one day, you can start the next day. You just aren't in the results anymore. So really what we want is for everybody to ride their bikes as much as possible and have a great time. So if you get to stage 4 and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, and you figure out a way to get to camp that night without riding, and there are ways that you can just like ask somebody for a ride because people are driving there, you can start stage 5 without any problem. You just aren't going to be in the overall results. And then on day 3, it's actually a 3-stage enduro style. So there's a timed climb, a timed single track section, and a timed descent. And that stage is optional for the settlers. So if you're doing the settler course, which is the shorter one, you can do that day or you can not do that day. It's totally up to you. And there are lots of people that are like, I'm just hanging out and saving myself for the rest.
And there's no shame in that, right? Like when we were in Girona, because it was pretty hard riding over there.
Yeah.
And there were some people that were like, I'm riding down to town and I'm taking the van back up. You can't do that obviously here, but right, like take care of yourself. If you're not racing, you're there for fun. So what's going to make it fun?
And if you're there to race, you should still be having fun. Otherwise, like you're missing out. And it's just some of my best friends I've made at Oregon Trail, like the community, the camaraderie, people supporting each other. It's awesome to see. We have so many women who have met at other races and come together, or met at Oregon Trail and then done other races together. It's just this really cool community that you get to share an experience that's really hard. And when you do that, you create bonds that I think are hard to replicate in like real life. So it's pretty special.
Is the Settlers route timed with awards?
It is timed. I don't believe there are awards.
Okay. So that's the shorter route of people.
Mm-hmm. And you can switch if you start in Pioneer and you decide, you see the cutoff one day and you're like, I want to go that way. You just can go that way. Like they're great about helping you finish and have a good time. So if you feel like you're in over your head and you want to do it the shorter route one day, there's no problem. You just aren't in the overall results.
No. And then what are there other camp essentials? So you mentioned the eye mask, the earplugs. I recommend a small fan if you're like me and 50 and need to get really hot at night. Anything else that makes it more fun at camp?
Yeah. Well, I would bring a really good sleeping pad or a cot. You want to sleep well, so give yourself every advantage. Or a cot with a sleeping pad on top. So that's really good. Bring a water bottle, bring any snacks that you're like, I love Cheetos and I want to eat Cheetos every afternoon because they make me really happy. Bring your Cheetos, things like that are just going to be comforting. If you are really, if you're really particular with any specific food items, bring that. Chairs, camp chairs are there. So you don't need to bring a camp chair. You don't need to bring anything to sit on. Bring a towel, bring all your shower stuff. The showers are portable shower trailers. They're awesome. But you'll want some flip-flops or shower shoes because they can get kind of, gnarly after 200 people have been in and out of them. I'm trying to think what other essentials.
Yeah. Okay, I have to ask this one. It's not on your list, but because we are talking to mostly women and we
Yeah.
are women's sports. What about periods? Like, how do you manage a period on something like this?
So all the aid stations will have feminine products and an outhouse. So you can, if you need to change a tampon or mid race, that's available. If you get your period mid race and you're like, oh my God, there's going to be an aid station in 10 miles, there are going to be feminine products for you there and a place that you can take care of that. In regards to camp, all the camps have bathrooms. Some of them are like outhouse trailers. Some of them are actual physical bathrooms, but they're clean and private. So I would say bring what you need in regards to tampons or pads or whatever, but there are also opportunities. The race will have some if your period comes unexpectedly, don't worry, we got you.
Yeah, I think like having, if you think that could happen, like wet wipes, those that you can use, they're quite nice because just like sometimes you feel a little more
Yeah.
gross. And something that somebody gave me as a tip once, and I was like, this is actually pretty brilliant, is dog poop bags. If you, for some reason,
Oh,
ever
yeah.
have to carry out a tampon, like if you're a very heavy
Yeah.
bleeder or something, like,
Yeah.
and you have to on the trail, like they're designed to carry dog poop. So they keep smells in, they keep,
That's
they're
a really great idea, Catherine.
easy to throw away. So wasn't my tip. It was Carol Poole actually told me that once. And I was
I
like,
like
that's
that.
really smart.
Yeah. Yeah. And the nice thing too about these aid stations is that the tampons, the wet wipes, the Advil are going to be on the table. So you don't have to ask for them. You don't have to make a scene.
I
It will
volunteer.
just, yeah, they're just going to be there for you. And you can pick one up just like you would pick up a gel. And you won't have to feel, we make it, well, not we, I don't, but Colleen, who does the aid stations, wants to make sure that that's not something that an extra stress for us women while we're out there.
That is much appreciated, I'm sure, by a lot of women. Even if you're not there, like seeing that, you go, oh, I belong here. Like somebody's thinking about
Yeah.
me.
We need to normalize it too. Like everybody gets their period, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's half the population are women. It's something that shouldn't be,
Yeah.
not talked about. And on that note, I highly recommend to have 5 pairs of shorts. You'll see people rinsing their shorts out in the river or in the shower, but having a clean pair of bib shorts every day is just what you want to do. So if you've got 4 pairs and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to just stretch one, I'll just make it work." Like invest in yourself, go buy a new pair, another pair of chamois or another chamois, and you'll be glad you did.
Cool. Okay, bug spray.
Yeah, bring bug spray. I wouldn't say we have horrible bugs, but we can get mosquitoes, and there'll also be bug spray around camp, and also sunscreen. Bring your own sunscreen, but if you forget or you're at the aid station, you're like, oh my gosh, I've sweated all my sunscreen off. There'll be sunscreen available around camp and at the aid stations.
And then a question about a bike wash, and then also maybe just a little bit on like why it's important to kind of take care of your bike every day on an event like this.
Yeah, so every day there is a bike wash. There's a hose, most likely, at least in previous years, bucket with some rags and brushes and whatnot. You're responsible for doing that on your own, unless you bring a mechanic, which most of us aren't going to have a mechanic there. So I would recommend as soon as you finish the stage and get yourself cleaned up, get your bike cleaned up. And the benefits of that are, one, just run through everything. Do your tires look good? Did you lube your chain? Are you having any shifting issues? And if you are having any issues with your tires or your shifting or anything, there is a neutral mechanic there. But you don't want to wait until 7 o'clock at night to deal with that. And you don't want to wait until 7 o'clock in the morning to deal with that. They get really busy. So to avoid having to stand in line and hope the mechanic can help you, take your bike to your local bike shop now and just say, hey, I'm doing this big race. Will you just give me a pre-race check? And they're going to tighten bolts. They're going to check your bottom bracket. They're going to measure your chain. They may ask you, when's the last time you put sealant in these tires? And they'll give you fresh sealant. If you have nicks or cuts in your tires, buy new tires. You've spent so much energy and time getting ready for this race. Like, you want to set yourself up for success. So if you have any questionability about the integrity of your tires, just buy new ones. If you have a plug stuck in one from 5 weeks ago when you were on a training ride, like, just replace it. And, I have tires that I only race on, and I train on other ones. And that's nice because then I'm like, oh, this pair of tires is fresh and I can throw those on. So it's not like the ones that you've been training on need to go in the garbage. You can save those and put them back on your wheels post race and save your new tires for your next event.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think one of the things we learned at our mechanic camp is how important it is to lube your chain every time, basically every day, every time you ride it, because it cleans it and then it makes sure that it's fresh lube, and that keeps the whole cassette, like, it keeps everything else moving well. And I can't emphasize enough that, like, get to the bike shop early. Somebody messaged me Unbound that they had some major issues, and when I heard about the issues, I was like, yeah, that was a bike service that needed to happen before you came.
Yeah. So. And bring your own lube, because you don't know what the mechanics or the race might have at any event. And so if you're like, oh, I always use ATB or I always use Squirt, just bring your own. And then, because once your drivetrain it has one brand or type of lube, you kind of want to stick to it, unless you can totally clean your chain, which at Oregon Trail is kind of difficult. So, yeah.
Okay, somebody is debating which bike to bring: Giant Revolt with 44 mil Rene Hurst Hurricane Ridges, or Salsa Cutthroat with 2.2 Rene Hurst Fleece or Ridge.
Well, the Giant Revolt is a great bike. I haven't ridden the Salsa. I think there's enough climbing in that race that you'd probably want to go. If you had to pick between the two, I would probably pick the Revolt with the 44s.
Okay, we covered a little bit of this, but if it starts out slow, will lots of fast pros be aggressively passing me on the downhills? What's the best etiquette for going downhill safely when I know there'll be all kinds of people passing you? You will not run into the pros, right? Because there's a separate start.
Yeah, the pros, unless you take the early start, the pros will start in front of you. So you're not going to have to worry about that. And
they might.
The races do not start slow. However, if for whatever reason there is a pro coming behind you, say they flatted and now they're catching up with you, they're really good bike riders. They know how to pick lines. They know how to take. So what I would recommend is just hold your line. Do not move. Don't try to get out of their way. It's their responsibility to navigate around you. And the worst thing you can do is be reactionary or unpredictable. So hold your line, do your thing. And like I said earlier, kind of blinders, just like they're going to probably say on your left, which means they're going to pass you on your left, and you just stay where you are. Don't do anything. I really like when someone alerts me that they're behind me, but it can be scary if you're not expecting it. So just know they're whatever they're saying to let you know I'm here and I want you to be aware that I'm here, but it is not your responsibility to get out of their way.
Yeah, that's good. And that's true for anybody, right? The more you react, the more it just causes a scary situation, because they were maybe trying to pass you, or just like hold your line, and it's the person behind you's responsibility to get around you.
Yeah.
Well, those are all the questions in our document. If anybody is listening on the chat and you have any more you want to drop in, I'm going to let Serena she has any closing things that she wants to share with us. Yeah.
I'm so excited. If you're coming to Oregon Trail, please join us for the Special Blend Schwalbe Shakeout Ride on Tuesday prior to race day, which is Wednesday. All that information is on the Special Blend Gravel website. We're going to have coffee, pastries. We'll go for about an hour cruise, see the beginning of the stage 1 course. And then in addition to that, you get early packet pickup. So you can pick up your bin and all the things that you need at noon prior to the masses coming. So that will be on Tuesday, the day before race day. In Oak Ridge on Friday, we're doing the women's pro panel Q&A, which is just going to be a super casual, fun time for a bunch of us to sit around and get to know each other. But it is so much fun. And if you're on the fence, just do it. It's great. It's like, it's the best week of the summer. And that's why I keep going back. So, and Catherine, thank you so much. I feel like you provide so much awesome information for so many different races, and you're just doing such a great job of providing details and taking away some of the mystery so that people can show up and feel comfortable and confident. And it's really awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. It's fun. And now I'm like, I need to sign up for this next year for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, everybody go say hi to Serena when you see her at the camp, and any of the other female pros. I mean, I don't know the men as well, but they actually really love that. And I know a lot of the women racing, and they're very approachable. And I think it would just really be fun for you to get to know some of them and everybody else in camp. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, this will be live on YouTube. If you have a friend that wanted to see it, or if you need to rewatch it, you can just send them the link. It'll just process, and then it'll just be sitting there. So thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm trying to end the stream. It's not letting me stop. Okay, if you're still watching, for some reason, it's not letting me stop the recording, which has never happened before. I think we might just have to leave the studio, Serena, to stop it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll leave, and then
I'll send you a message.
Okay. Okay, bye.